Top 4 musicians who hated Morrissey. Morrissey gained fame as the lead singer of the Smiths in the 1980s and quickly became a cultural icon. He has influenced many indie rock and alternative bands, with artists like Radiohead and Oasis acknowledging his role in shaping the landscape of 80s and 90s alternative music. His thoughtful and melancholic lyrics, which explore themes of loneliness, alienation, and societal issues, struck a chord with many listeners, while his unique vocal style and theatrical stage presence made him an unforgettable music figure. After the Smiths, Morrissey achieved solo success, releasing numerous critically acclaimed albums and amassing a loyal fanbase. While his music continues to be cherished, his contentious opinions and confrontational demeanor have sparked public disputes and criticism from fellow artists. Many have voiced their disapproval of his conduct, choosing to distance themselves from his views and, in some instances, transforming admiration into resentment. Here are 4 musicians who hated Morrissey the most. Robert Smith. Robert Smith from The Cure has been quite vocal about his disdain for various artists in the music scene. In the 1980s, both The Cure and the Smiths played significant roles in UK music, though they took different approaches within the post-punk genre. Smith was particularly critical of the Smiths' lead singer, Morrissey. The tension between Smith and Morrissey traces back to the 1980s. In an interview, Smith expressed his strong dislike for Morrissey, stating, "I actually dislike the Smiths immensely. I just don't like Morrissey, and I think he's really arrogant. He's like a professional intellectual, the worst kind of person." He even remarked, "If Morrissey says not to eat meat, I'm going to eat meat, that's how much I hate him." Morrissey sings the same song every time he opens his mouth. If only people knew how easy it is to be in groups like the Smiths. Although Smith has mellowed over time, he continues to express skepticism towards the Smiths' music, which he feels lacks the depth Morrissey once accused The Cure of lacking. Elvis Costello. Elvis Costello has openly criticized Morrissey's work, despite some stylistic overlaps. Noting the repetitive nature and perceived inferiority of Morrissey's solo projects, Morrissey writes wonderful song titles, but sadly he often forgets to write the song. Morrissey has been singing the same tune for 20 years. I just don't get it. But he's obviously an interesting character and means a lot to people. He also mentioned Morrissey's sensitivity to criticism, which he considered a typical English characteristic, likening him to personalities like Frankie Howerd and Tony Hancock. Costello suggested that Morrissey's quirks and vulnerabilities have contributed to his appeal, similar to other cherished British figures, intertwined with the cultural narrative. Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins is known for being candid and outspoken. During an appearance on the Australian TV show Rage in the early 90s, he made a memorable comment about Morrissey. While acknowledging that Morrissey crafted some of the best songs of the 1980s, Rollins noted that some of Morrissey's recent comments had damaged his public image. "In my opinion, Morrissey embodies every horrible trait a person can have. He's British, they don't have to work very hard, they already have a handicap." David Bowie. During the 1970s, David Bowie pushed the boundaries of traditional rock aesthetics and sound, a trajectory that Morrissey would later emulate. Bowie's impact on a group like the Smiths is quite evident. When Morrissey took jabs at Bowie, he stood his ground. Upon hearing some of Morrissey's solo material, Bowie recognized that the saxophone riff in "I Know It's Gonna Happen Someday" bore a striking resemblance to the ending of Rock and Roll Suicide. Not wanting to be overshadowed, Bowie recorded his own rendition for his 1990s album Black Tie White Noise. Bowie reflected, "I realized he was parodying one of my earlier songs, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it." Were these musicians justified in their disdain for Morrissey, or were they just letting their egos get the best of them? Let us know in the comments below.